Hi guys, welcome back, and today I'm going to be talking about this new beautiful mouthpiece brought to us by Selmer, the Claude Delangle Alto Mouthpiece. And I thought I'd start off by showing you how this mouthpiece is presented to us. So it comes in this beautiful wooden box with some lovely golden clips and golden embossing going on here. So I'm just going to show you that first of all, put it aside and move on to the mouthpiece. So what is this new mouthpiece by Selmer all about? Well, it's called the Claude Delangle Alto Mouthpiece, and Claude Delangle in brief is this great contemporary classical player, probably one of the greatest modern saxophone players of our time in that style and idiom. He currently teaches at the Paris Conservatory and has a big influence on the education field, as well as being a great soloist working with some incredible modern contemporary classical composers. So that's Claude as a sax player, a lot of influence. So what Selmer have done is they have collaborated with the great man himself, and they've come up with this wonderful new contemporary classical crossover mouthpiece. And what it does is it takes some ideas from traditional mouthpiece making and mixes them with modern mouthpiece making ideas, but particularly in the Selmer tradition. So first of all, the modern mouthpiece tradition that I'm talking about is the concept mouthpiece, whereby they've got the same chamber shape, the same cutaway that you see here on the outside, but in terms of the traditional element of this mouthpiece, you can see this glaringly obvious metal collar here on the end. And it's not just a collar, but the material, this metal, runs all the way through the bore of the mouthpiece to this point here, right up to the chamber. And it adds some real weight to the mouthpiece. As I'm holding it in my hand here, it doesn't weigh the same as the usual standard ebonite mouthpiece. It's pretty weighty. It feels closer to a metal mouthpiece. And this metal collar, it was associated with a mouthpiece that Adolf sax produced back in the day. So they're melding that tradition of this original mouthpiece with modern mouthpiece design. And the results are this beautifully focused sound, but with this sort of element of denseness and projection and sort of power in the sound, if that's possible within a sort of classical mouthpiece setup. So I'm going to give it a test run right now. And then a little bit later for you, I'm also going to contrast it with two of the other really popular Selmer mouthpieces, just so it puts the whole thing in context for you. Well, I had a bit of fun there composing on the spot a classical piece. It felt like I was drawing back on my old oboe days when I was kind of playing something classical, but also moving slightly in a jazz direction. So yes, that was instant classical composition going on there, because this mouthpiece draws you in that direction. It doesn't really take me in the jazz direction, although I feel it has a little bit of a tendency to be able to do that. But because it's got such a lovely floaty centered sound, and the tip opening is quite small, it tends to focus the sound and make you want to play in that style. So for you classical students out there, I can really see this being a choice that suits players who want to maybe project a little bit more than some of the standard classical setups will allow you to do so. And this clearly comes from the construction of it. As I mentioned in my intro there, it has this gold-plated collar which runs all the way through. So mouthpiece is very heavyweight in its design, But this material is clearly vibrating when you're playing it. It really rings through. And I try to demo that a little bit in that little piece that I made up there, whereby, you know, I would hold a middle F, for example, and as I crescendo, I could really feel the sound ringing out and projecting very nicely. So it is a great crossover piece in the sense that it's a reined-in mouthpiece. It can produce that kind of controlled focus sound, but at the same time the sound can open up into something a little bit brighter and more open and more soloistic. So I can see why Claude put his name to this mouthpiece, and he must be a very happy guy. This is a great piece. Now, I believe that many of you out there may already own another Selmer mouthpiece, a Concept or an S80. So I thought to put this whole thing in context, it would just be a good idea to give you a little clip on the Concept mouthpiece first, and then perhaps the S80. I've got an S80C double star lined up down there. So I'm just going to play a brief clip of music on each of these mouthpieces so that you can get a bit of a feel of comparison between them. So we're going to start with the Concept. And now I've got the Selmer S80. And now back to the Claude. Well, there you are. You've heard all three in close proximity, and I thought I'd end again with the Claude Delangle mouthpiece, just because that's what this video is all about, but hopefully putting it in context there was quite useful for you. Actually, I enjoyed playing all three. They've all got that similar Selmer characteristic about them, a nice warmth of tone to them, and a natural projection, even within the sort of classical confines. But this one certainly projects a little bit more. It's got a little bit more prominence and ring to the sound. I hope you could hear that just in that last little musical clip there. So I think this is going to be a really important addition to Selmer's mouthpiece lineup, which after all is a classic lineup of mouthpieces. I mean, the Selmer S80 C star and its other varied tip variations has been right at the top of the list in terms of go-to classical mouthpieces for many years, and the Concept has made a real splash since it came in a few years ago. But here we have another one that's going to make a big splash, if not an even bigger splash, especially with the likes of Claude Delangle behind it. So I thought it was worth doing a feature video on it for that reason alone. So overall, a lovely mouthpiece, and of course I thoroughly recommend that you come down and try it. That's the main thing. You need to try this mouthpiece out. But hopefully this video has given you a good starting indication.